Well, hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining today's workshop on Instagram Insights. My name is Rachel Cavalario. I'm the AVP of Public Relations and Social Media here at BU. Today's event is part of our Strategic Communication Series, a collaboration between BU's Public Relations Social Media team and the Office of Research. And the series helps faculty communicate about their research and expertise in effective and compelling and accessible ways. Today, we are pleased to welcome Suzanne Whitby, a communications specialist and founder of SciComm Success, which helps scientists and researchers share their work. We hope you enjoy today's session with Suzanne and walk away with best practices and tips you can implement in your day-to-day work. If you have any questions, please share them directly in the Zoom chat and Suzanne will answer throughout the session. I did want to note that today's presentation is being recorded and the slides and the recording will be shared after the event. Thank you all. And with that, I will turn it over to Suzanne.
Fantastic. Hello, everybody. Thank you very much for showing up. I hope that you're all feeling fit and feisty and ready to go. Just to check how you're feeling, I'm going to share my screen, cross my fingers. You know how these things work. With a bit of luck, you can see my first invitation to you, and that is to tell us a bit about who you are, right? I'd love to know your name if you haven't got it on your screen. I'd love to know a little bit about your research focus or your role if you're not a researcher. And on the sheep scale, how are you feeling today? Just pop a 1 to number 9. Are you having a bad hair day? Are you feeling cool? Tell us a bit about you, please. A 5. Oh, fantastic. Oh, we've got a bit of a mix, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Language acquisition, communications manager, program manager, working with school nurses, feeling a 7. Oh, I'm interested. Leslie, what does it mean? Wonderful. Okay. Samantha, marketing and communications. Elisa, biomechanics. Oh, wow. Okay. All right. Assistant Dean for Communications. Sydney, I am concerned. All right. We've got Naomi from Sign Language. Chief Shock. How interesting. Okay. 9. Okay. Wow, thank you so much for playing along. So many of you will know that it's always a great way to start, just to get an idea of who we have in the room. One of the reasons I've asked you this is because when Rachel and her team sent out the invitation, she asked folks for some questions about who they were and what level, or not what level, I beg your pardon, what questions they might have. And some of the questions that came back felt like they were very basic, people who had never used Instagram. And some people sounded like they were super experts. Amelia, I love it. 4 sheep. That's absolutely fantastic. Brilliant. So with that in mind, the second thing that I would like to ask you to do, if I may, is I would like to ask you to participate in a quick Mentimeter, just to tell us a little bit about what you know. So the Mentimeter link is in the chat. If you wouldn't mind just clicking on that and going to it, there are 4 quick questions, just so we can get a feel for the level of knowledge that we have in the room, so that we can tailor stuff on the fly if necessary. And I'll just give you a moment to do that, hopefully not too complicated. All right, and whilst you're doing that, I shall attempt to share my screen, she says. Let's have a go and see how we go. Alrighty. Okay, I can see some of the responses coming in. There we go. All right. So we've had 48 responses so far, and the numbers are crawling up. So what we are seeing, let me just double check that you can see what I'm seeing and that I'm not showing you my laundry list. Great. So what we can see is that we have got a huge number of you who are already using Instagram regularly for personal, for work, for something else. Okay. There are a few of you who aren't, by the looks of things, but we've got a very high number of people who are already familiar with Instagram. We've got about 50% of you, maybe a little bit more, who consider themselves to be pretty knowledgeable about how to use Instagram and its features. Oh, I feel like you're selling yourself short, guys. I mean, so many of you are already using this. We've got about a 50% confidence rate of people who feel comfortable about using Instagram to promote their research. And we've got a little bit less than 50% saying that they're already using Instagram to use their research. So what I'm going to propose is that when we go into this, we probably won't spend as much time looking at the basic functionality of Instagram. It sounds like many of you already know this. We'll cover that very quickly. And then we're going to dive into more of the strategic stuff. Excuse me, very specifically, what we are going to cover is, let's see if my very clever technical setup is going to behave with me or not. We are going to cover, will you work, will you not? What will happen? Is that change? Oh, it's changed. Fantastic. Okay, great. So this is what we're going to cover. We're going to quickly have a look at Instagram, who uses it and why we might use it. We're going to think about how we could start working more strategically with Instagram. If we're using it personally, strategy might not be our top priority. We're going to think about setting the scene with our profile. We've had some questions from folks who've said that they're a little bit uncertain about how to set up their profile, so that bears a little bit of working on. We're going to think about how to move from some of the high-level strategic thinking into some of the implementation, right? So some of the how is what I call it. And we're going to focus very specifically on what I think is super important, the 3 C's. So this is our content, this is about being consistent, and this is about connecting with our community. And then we're going to have a look, or a brief chat perhaps, about promotion and measurement. And then I'm going to ask you, what are your next steps, right? What do you want to do next? Along the way, we are going to be asking you questions. This is going to work. Yes, it is. Good. This beautiful bright screen indicates comments, questions, objections. At any point, I can see that we've got lots of good knowledge in the room. If I'm talking about something and you're thinking, oh, she's talking a load of rubbish, or I think that there is a different way to do this, please feel free to pop something in the chat. I will then do my best to respond to whatever you've put in, if I can. And if I can't, then I'm going to gather all of your seeds of wisdom, and that's going to come out to everybody who's participated as extra pieces of or nuggets of wisdom that you can use in your Instagram travels. Let's call it that. Does that sound okay? Thank you, Connor, for nodding. It's so nice to have a head. That's great. So I will just try that out. Are there any questions? Do we have any objections? Do we have any comments that you'd like to throw into the room, either via chat or by unmuting yourself? Ladies and gentlemen, it is very, very quiet. Okay, I will continue. Feel free to interrupt me at any time by popping stuff into the chat. If I miss stuff in the chat, the lovely Rachel will bring me back. So let's start off with something very basic. So, what is Instagram? So when we're thinking about what Instagram is, we're really thinking about Instagram as a social media platform. When we're thinking about social media platforms, we're thinking about connection and having conversations and dialogue, right? I think that, forgive me if I'm a bit cynical, I think that this is the very pure interpretation of what social media is. Often now it feels like when we're using social media, it's a place where people are trying to sell to us. There are lots of people broadcasting, and sometimes the conversations seem to get lost. We want to see whether we can regain some of that so that we can engage more with people about our research. Right? Instagram has a very heavy focus on the visual. And what I'm going to do is I am going to quickly move over to, she says, hopefully, I'm going to move across to Instagram itself. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to do a switch. And and look at that, it just works automatically. That's incredible. Can I just get a thumbs up? Can you see the BU screen, the BU profile? Yeah? Super. Thank you for the nods. Right. So what we've got here is the BU profile. If you're not currently following it, don't worry. You will receive a list of recommended profiles for you to follow on Instagram if you're already there. the thing that we can notice immediately is it's all about the images, right? We've got this lovely big BU logo. We've got these lovely highlighted elements here with the icons, right? If you're not familiar with that, don't worry, we'll chat about that shortly. And as we go down, we can just see lots and lots of images and videos and carousels and so on. For those of you who aren't familiar, we've got, I would say, 4 types of content that we're typically using on Instagram. You're going to be very familiar with this. I'm going to whiz through it. Stop me if I'm going too fast. We have bog standard images, right? Just plain old images. We have, this is a plain old image. This is just the feed, right? Also just to show you the visual aspect, right, on the desktop. So we've got bog standard images, single image. We have carousel images where we can have multiple images, up to 10 images we can have in our carousel. Most of these examples are all from BU folk. So if you see something inspiring, feel free to follow them later and tell them. We have video, right? I'm a big fan of the BU Deaf Studies site. Video, ordinary video that comes into our feed can be as long as 60 minutes. Some of you have said that you are hoping to engage Gen Z, or Gen Z, I think you would say in the United States. If you're trying to engage Gen Z, I think a 60-minute video might wipe them out, right? So we want to keep them short, but maybe longer than Reels. Reels are Instagram's response to how do we replicate the success of TikTok, right? So these are very quick, very fun, very engaging, very scrollable, short vertical form videos. What we're seeing with these videos is they're between 3 seconds and 90 seconds in total, right? So much shorter. All of this content that we've been talking about so far is evergreen, right? Evergreen means that it always stays on your profile unless you actively delete it. Okay. So moving swiftly on, we then move to stories. Stories are these glorious things. Apparently, Gen Z love stories. They love stories because they're very dynamic, lots of interaction. They mix images, they mix videos, they mix interesting little interactive features. So, for example, this is from NASA. It was the best little story that I could find for this particular workshop. We've got these little stickers here where you can actually click and link through. So this kind of gives you all of that interactivity that we don't necessarily get with a plain image or even with a video, right? Problem with stories, for those of you who aren't familiar with them, is that they only stay on our account for 24 hours. This could be good. Gen Z and many people, they like the scarcity mindset. Ooh, it's going to disappear in 24 hours. Oh dear, the event is only available for another hour or 2. So you could use these in order to speak to your followers, to kind of get interest from your followers. Of course, it's a bit of a problem if you don't have any followers because stories only go out to your followers. So what are aspiring science communicators to do? Never fear, because Instagram has something called highlights, right? You can create a highlight, which essentially has exactly the same functionality as a story, but it is evergreen. And there are 2 ways that we can feature highlights on our profile, right? We can either, as this particular professor has done, this is his personal account. He mixes some personal stuff with a lot of research-focused material. He's been very simple about it, right? He's just popped stuff that he thinks is important up as a highlight, right? But when we're looking at many of the departmental accounts, including this one from the Institute for Global Sustainability, what we're seeing is that they've used these highlights sort of like a curated sub-menu of things that they offer, of things that people might be interested in. And this is great, right? Because it means that when I come to this particular profile, I don't have to go through 5 years worth of images and out-of-date events and so on. I can very quickly say, oh, I wonder what research they do. And we can click, and with a bit of luck, fantastic, it's working. With a bit of luck, we see the first story, right, or highlight. And again, just like stories, we can have images, we can have videos, we can have some moving text. We can click a link to see the full story. And of course, we can also interact and engage. Best thing about these little highlights is they've got all the interaction and, ladies and gentlemen, they are evergreen. right? So they're always on our profile. So lots of positive stuff here, okay? We've spoken about the lovely Jorge. Other things that you want to think about when it comes to our social media account, our Instagram account, is that even though, Caitlin, I'll answer you in a second. I will come back to that in 2 ticks. So even though we're looking at a very visual platform, and even though it's really our sexy images and our wonderful videos and our glorious reels that are pulling attention in, that are kind of grabbing attention from people, there's still a really good place for text, right? The way that people are going to find you, let's pretend for a second somebody is interested in climate change. Typically what they're going to do is they're going to click on the search icon on the left-hand side, and obviously in their app it's going to be elsewhere, and they're going to type in climate change, right? So if climate change is your thing, we need to make sure that you have the word climate change in as many places as possible in your content, right? Places we're going to have that. We're going to have that in our username potentially. Can't have it in your username because it's too short, no problem. You can have it in your name, right? You can also have it in your bio, right? This is this news information thing that we're seeing with BU experts. The other thing you can do is you can embed text into your image. This can be really useful as people are whizzing through their profiles. If they see something like this image here, research on CTE and concussions, for example, they don't even have to click it. All they have to do is click like or share or comment, right? So it's a really good way of shortcutting the short attention spans that we have, right? Could be an interesting thing to do, but this text on these images is not searchable, right? But that's okay, because what we can do next to our images, next to our carousels, and next to our video posts, our single video posts, we have the opportunity to have a caption or a description, right? We can go mad. We can go for 300 to 400 words. We can use it like a micro-blogging system. Do you want to? Is it a good idea? Different story. We'll come back to that in a bit, but you can do this, right? You're going to be having ordinary human readable text with lovely rich keywords that people can find through the search functionality. We're going to have lots of these lovely hashtags. For those of you who aren't familiar with hashtags, they're a little bit like categories or keywords that are clickable. We click them and it filters the whole of Instagram for anything that is using that hashtag, right? Great way to filter information and do some research. So this is really, really useful in terms of not only providing additional information, but in terms of helping people find you, right? So bringing them to your posts or to your profile so that they can engage with you a bit more, okay? The last place I think where it's really useful to have text, and useful is probably a subjective viewpoint, there is an opportunity for you, if you want to interact with people on a regular basis, to add things called notes, right? On the surface, notes could be considered useless. They are only 60 characters in length. That is around, 3 or 4 words, depending on how long your words are and what language you are speaking. Maybe 10 words in English if we're lucky. Nice thing about this, only goes to your followers. Only lasts 24 hours. It can be a simple little comment. It can be a comment about your day. It can be a comment about how things are going in your lab. Does this feel like science communication? Maybe not. Does this feel like engaging with your followers on a very human level? Yes. And again, just coming back to Gen Z, because so many of you asked about this, that's what Gen Z wants. They want to have regular check-ins. They want to feel like they're being spoken to like they are ordinary human beings, as so many of us do. But on social media, sometimes we have different expectations depending on our backgrounds, right? So if you want to connect with people on a human level, if you don't just want to broadcast information, this could be a way for you to connect with people in an interesting way, right? Very, very short form, won't take a lot of time, something for you to think about. So, my lovelies, that is a very quick overview of all of the content possibilities that we have on Instagram. Let's see if I can get, is it going to work? Can I get back to my slides? Ladies and gentlemen, fingers crossed. Yes, no, maybe. Ta-da, fantastic. Look at that magic. So what else do we need to know about Instagram? right? So we know a bit about the content. We know that it's a social media platform. We know that there's a visual focus. We know that in the US, it is very widely used. There was a report that was done by Pew Research last year, towards the end of last year, and they've suggested that around 48% of the US population, excluding people under the age of 13, are using Instagram. To what extent, we don't know, but that's their finding. What we also know from both Pew Research and also another report that comes out every year called Digital 2024, obviously the year changes every year, we know that it is the third most used platform, social media platform in the US, and theoretically worldwide too. So in the US, we've got YouTube, also very popular with our lovely Gen Z folk. We are then followed by Facebook, because everybody in the world seems to have a Facebook account, whether they use it or not. In the US, the third most popular platform is then Instagram, and globally, they just work things out a bit differently. Third most used platform is WhatsApp, but of course, that's quite a different proposition. So in essence, we can say, I think, that Instagram is very widely used, third most popular platform worldwide, right? What does this mean for us? Why do we care? We care because it means that if you want to disseminate your research or share your research with a very wide audience, worldwide or within the United States, you've got a lot of people on the platform who you could potentially reach, potentially being the operative word here, right? But the potential is there, okay? Other thing for us to bear in mind is that in the US, we've actually got more data about who is actually using the system. Again, referencing our Pew Research report, what we know is that the users in the US skew female, more female than male users, typically speaking. We know that we are looking at users between the ages of 18 and 50 who are the most active. 18 to 29, we're looking at around 78% of people who are self-reporting using Instagram on a regular basis. When we get a bit older, 30 to 50, we're looking at about 60%. And once we get to 51 plus, it's sort of, I don't want to say drops off a cliff, but it goes down quite significantly. So what else do we know? We know that in the US, more Hispanic and Asian Americans tend to use Instagram than white and Black users. We know that our users on Instagram tend to be well-educated, relatively highly paid, and they tend to live in urban spaces. We also know from a political point of view that they tend to lean a little bit more towards the Democrat side of things than the Republican. Again, why do we care? Well, we want to make sure that if we're going to invest all this time doing our social media stuff, we're able to reach the people we want to reach. If, by some very peculiar chance, your target audience happens to be white males between the ages of 70 and 80 who live in urban areas and lean towards Republican politics, you're probably on the wrong platform, right? So it's really useful for us to be aware of this. Obviously, you can dig deeper and find out more about who's on the platform by doing some searching, by using the search functionality and seeing what kind of voices are in the virtual room. But this just gives you a feel for who you're going to find. Other things for us to bear in mind in terms of our audience or the people that we can reach is that we have a pretty good community of researchers on the site. I would say from what I've seen, a lot of the individual researchers who are speaking and who are quite, I'm going to call them quite loud in a good way. These are young researchers, early career, perhaps their PhDs, maybe even earlier. They're talking about their career experiences. They're talking about their research experiences. Some of them are just getting very, very excited about their research subject matter. We're seeing a lot of medical stuff that's being talked about, obviously lots of climate change. And of course, any research that's got pretty pictures, right? Any research where they can make it very visual, this is definitely coming out. One of the questions that came through was something along the lines of how would you compare using Instagram as a sort of a research communication tool to reach out to other researchers versus, for example, X. And my feeling about this, and this is an anecdotal, there's no research behind this as far as I can tell. There is still a very active and talkative community on X. because this is the place where we found researchers and scientists exchanging ideas and having good old conversations. Instagram is a different proposition. You know, it's not just a case of coming in, writing a line of text, you know, whacking in a link and saying, there we go, let's have a conversation. You know, you have to go and you have to have an image. And, you know, you then have this place where you write your additional text. In order for people to access this information, they first of all got to scroll through all of these images to find the good stuff, to find the conversation. And so it's a little bit more challenging to have that kind of discussion. So if that's the kind of thing that you want on Instagram, it's going to be more challenging. The good thing about Instagram for this kind of work is that, you know, it's wide open. At the moment, we don't have the same, for example, if you're on LinkedIn, you know, there are lots of people who are, I'm going to use the word cold calling, introducing themselves to other people on the platform and asking if they can be in their network. This doesn't happen to the same extent when we're thinking about Instagram. This could be a great opportunity for you, you know, to reach out and say, oh, you know, I really love your work. I'm following you. You know, I'd love to have a conversation about X, Y, and Z. Is there an opportunity to collaborate? So I think that there are some really interesting opportunities for you as a researcher to potentially network and connect and collaborate with like-minded people on Instagram who so far do not even know that you exist. Or maybe they do, maybe you're very important and they already know this. So a couple of people have asked about how different folks in BU could potentially use Instagram. So I'm just going to give you a quick example, again, from one of my favorite profiles, and this is from BU Deaf Studies and the BU Deaf Centre. Again, somebody asked, one of the questions that came through was something along the lines of, you know, how do we cope with one channel, with one user, when we're trying on the one hand to communicate with professionals about our research, and on the other we're trying to recruit students, right? How do we kind of deal with this? And there are different ways to do this. We can explore some more if that's of interest. But here's one way to do it. One way to do it is to split your account. So this is what the BU Deaf Studies and Deaf Centre have done. They've split their account into two. One branch focuses very much on, I would say, internal stuff, right? So BU community, campus and student life, alumni, and so on. The other part, which is the Deaf Centre, focuses very much on, you know, the kind of professional side of being a researcher, right? So it's research-based publications. It's connecting with, you know, with the community through community events, but this is the wider community, so more dissemination. And of course, they're also offering resources. So this is one way that Instagram is being used in this sort of capacity. And I just want to offer you one last thing before we kind of wrap up this quick introduction to thinking about Instagram. And this is about collabs. I don't know if any of you are using this functionality yet, but again, I think this could be very interesting in terms of connecting with new and interesting people, sort of, you know, widening your Instagram network, but also reducing the workload of creating content. What you can do is when you're creating a post, particularly images, videos, and carousels, you have the option to choose to collaborate with other people, right? So you can nominate 2 or 3 other people. Maybe you've been working on a paper with, you know, a number of other publishers and a number of other authors, and you can pop their names in here. And if they accept your invitation, your post will not only be posted on your channel, but it will be posted on all of their channels as well, right? So that's going to give you broader reach, and it's going to allow you to collaborate, and hopefully people can do that for you too, to kind of boost you on Instagram. So just to sort of bring this to a little close and to start off our question session, for me, I would say that using Instagram involves creating content that is very much aligned with your goals and your audience, right? If you're not aligning the content creation with your goals and audience, you're going to have a bit of a challenge. You're not going to be able to hit is a hard word, right? But you're not going to be able to engage the people that you want to engage. We need to make sure that we're doing it consistently, and there are lots of parts surrounding that, and we need to think about how we're going to be connecting on an ongoing basis with the broader community and with our followers in order to engage them. And these are the 3 C's, and they're going to come up again and again and again. Lucky you. So the question is Instagram right for you? We don't know yet. We need to know what your goals are. But for now, we're going to see whether you've got any questions. And I know that there were a couple of questions in chat. So I'm just going to start with that first. The lovely Caitlin has said, do you know where the icons used to highlight the visuals are sourced from? So Caitlin, I don't know, and I'm pretty sure that we can ask the owners of the account. However, I will be providing you with a lovely list of resources. And one of the places that is very good for this sort of thing is the Noun Project. You can get free icons there, vector icons that you can modify. You can also pay for them, right? If you use them free, you've got to provide attribution. If you pay a small fee, you'll be able to use them free of charge. Another thing that is really great, also, here you can, it's also kind of free and not Vect Easy. I think it's easy, right? This is another option that you can potentially look for, but I will provide you with some resources where you can find that. And of course, Tatiana has also suggested Canva. Canva is just one of the options that are out there. So Caroline has asked the $1 million question. Caroline, thank you. So what are your suggestions for coming up with visual content if your research does not naturally have visuals? Caroline, I think to some extent this is going to be about, what are your goals? Why do you want to be on Instagram? Do you want to be on Instagram because you want to talk about your research journey? In which case you've got lots of stuff that you can show, right? You can show your desk filled with papers, right? You can show field work. You can show yourself at a conference. You can show your team. You can interview your team about what they're doing. You can interview yourself and reflect on some really interesting books that you've read or papers that you've read. You can invite people who are thought leaders in your field to come and have super short conversations with you on video and use that for reels and videos, right? So this could be a way for you to get out there and really share your research in a very engaging way that lots of people will be able to tap into. The challenge, of course, with all of this stuff, it's all visual. Visual stuff takes time to create, right? So do you have the time? If you don't have the time, and if you're not mad about the visual aspect, or you don't feel confident with it, you have to ask yourself the question, is Instagram the right channel to share the kind of research that you want to share? But my feeling, generally speaking, is that every researcher has a fantastic amount to share, just in terms of conversations and videos and day-to-day life, right? Because everyone wants to know, what do we do, right? So Naomi's asked, are there ways of using apps like ManyChat to increase engagement on Instagram? We've used it to ask people to comment and then respond by sending a copy of an article or another resource. Are there any ideas? So I don't have any ideas for you, Naomi, on this. If anybody does, please feel free to, to kind of share. Marta's very kindly mentioned Flaticon as a possible option for icons, right? Also a great place to go. And Christina's asked, do you have any strategies on how to promote new academic publications? So Christina, I think, or Christina, I beg your pardon if I'm mispronouncing that. So I think academic publications are challenging if all you want to do is take a screenshot of the publication from Nature and put it onto your Instagram channel and then include an abstract. Of course you can do that, right? Not a problem at all. That is still dissemination, that is still publishing, that's still telling people about your work. If you're going to be doing that, then I'm not entirely sure how much engagement you're going to get. So again, it's the same sort of advice that I offered to the lovely Caroline, which is something around, could you create a short video, a sort of video abstract to talk about your new academic publication? Could you include, if we're just thinking about pure images, is there a fantastic cover on the journal that might be eye candy that could pull people in? Is there a way that you could contact people on Instagram who are in a similar sort of field, maybe who have more followers than you, and tell them that you've got this great research out and ask them if they could give you a nudge, or if they could feature some of your work on their Instagram account? So these are some ways that you could potentially get started with that. Right. Super. And I can see that Mallory is chipping into the conversation. Thank you, lovely Mallory. That's perfect. With that, I think I'm going to move on because otherwise we're going to run out of time just with questions, which is also okay, but might not give you everything that you were expecting. So moving swiftly on, where are we off to? We're going to think a little bit about strategy now. Okay, so lots of people are not comfortable talking about strategy. How do you guys feel about strategy? Thumbs up, thumbs down in the chat. Do you spend a lot of time on doing strategic stuff? Naomi, big thumbs up, fantastic. Okay. Okay. All right, so I might be preaching to the choir here. I've got 3 thumbs up. That's fantastic. Okay, I mean, you know, I'm going to use that as a reference for the whole group just for the moment. So in terms of strategy, I think that having a decent strategy is really key to us being able to up our game in the Instagram stakes. One of the people who sent us a question made a comment, asked a question, depending on how you look at it, and they said something along the lines of, I'm really curious about this idea about, I think the term was beating the Instagram algorithm without a big budget, because the only way that you're really going to be featured on Instagram in any significant way is if you have a budget. And my feeling is that that's not true, because I have worked with people who've had big Instagram budgets and have totally wasted the budget because they haven't bothered to have a strategy. I have also worked with people who have just been incredibly lucky. They've posted something and it's just captured people's imagination at just the right time, right? Luck, right? And they've gone viral. You can't buy that, right? It's very difficult to plan to go viral. And I think that even though we don't necessarily have huge budgets as researchers and as research departments, I think that if we can get our strategy right, and we can really focus on creating really good content that connects with our audience, that's consistent, that's regular, that's engaging, right? I think we've got a good chance of giving the Instagram algorithm a run for its money. Not entirely sure if we can beat it, but you know, a run for its money, and I think that's still worth something. So great thing is that you have so many amazing resources at BU. There is a very short guide here, which I'll pop into the chat from BU. Over here, we've got a very quick, sorry, I was just reading Titania's comment and everybody laughing. So this is a very quick and easy social media strategy outline that we have on the BU public relations site that might be interesting for you to have a look at later. For the time being, what I'm going to do is I am going to offer you my very colorful, and hopefully you will enjoy the colors, and if you don't, I'm sorry, my very colorful version of what I think a strategy might comprise. And for me, it turns out pretty simple, but let's see what you think, whether this kind of rocks your boat or not. Okay, so you want to think about the who, and we want to think about the why. We want to think about the what, and we want to think about the how. So if any of you have been involved in communications or media relations, you will know that these are, you know, 4 very big questions. So what do these mean? So when we're thinking about the how, I want to know 2 things. Sorry, not beg your pardon, not the how, the who. When we're thinking about the who, I want to know who do we want to follow us, right? Who will follow us because of our incredible content? And who will we follow? Because of course, Instagram is not supposed to be that broadcasting channel where we're not actually engaging. It's also supposed to be a place where we can connect and network and follow and engage with other people's content, right? The next thing we want to know is the why. You know, why are you doing this? What is the point? If you are thinking to yourself, I need to be on Instagram and I need to share my content on Instagram because everybody else is doing it, or because my supervisor says that I have to do it, or because my comms team is telling us that we have to do it, I'm not sure if that's a good enough reason. Okay, you need to have a real feeling for, you know, why do you want to communicate stuff? You know, what's driving you? Is it all about credibility? Is it about raising your profile? Is it about, I don't know, is it about changing the minds of people in your field? Is it about getting people to be more aware about being empathetic towards some sort of illness? You know, who knows? Your research is also so diverse, right? That needs to be your red thread. this needs to be this wonderful thing that kind of weaves its way through everything that you do on Instagram. And of course, this applies to any communication that you do, right? You need to make sure that your why is really strong. Your why is going to be very closely linked to your who, right? If you are interested, your why is all about raising your profile and getting a book deal, let's pretend, right? Maybe the people that you want to follow you're not really thinking about general public, right? Maybe you're thinking about publishers, maybe you're thinking about peers, maybe you're thinking about people who can help you get a book deal or can help you get onto the speaking route. Conversely, if you are involved in some sort of medical study, and what you want to do is raise awareness about nutrition and how people can look after themselves based on your research, that might be, you thinking, I need to have people who are following me who are the sick people themselves, the patients, right? Their family, the people who are supporting them, maybe their GPs and their physicians who are going to be looking after them, right? So depending on your why, depending on your goals, this is going to influence your who. I always put your who first, because I think if you can't define who your audience is, then you don't really have much to say, right? You're just speaking into an echo chamber. But the why and the who, they're really, really intertwined. When it comes to the what, this is about what kind of content are you going to be posting, right? Are you going to be posting top tips? Are you going to be posting case studies? Are you going to be posting conference engagements? Are you going to be doing interviews? Are you going to be posting little videos with your students who are saying what an amazing person you are and please come and work for our department, right? This is all going to be linked to the who and the why. What's going to be relevant for them? And there are two things we want to think of here. The first is, can we be clever, right? Social media requires so much effort, right, to create really good content. Could you be a very generous person and share some content from thought leaders, right? You can share content. Maybe 20 to 30% of your content can easily be shared. And you can comment on it and say, I've really loved this post that XYZ has put out there, or I love this video because it's very insightful. Here is my 2 cents worth. And then, of course, you cite them. And that person gets a little notification that says, oh, researcher A has cited you and they've commented about you on their channel, which means that they can come and have a look and maybe they'll like it and, maybe they'll follow you back, right? This could be a really interesting way for you to cut down on your workload and get more followers and engage with your community. And of course, the other option is for you to create original content. And this content needs to be very clearly aligned to your who and your why, right? So and I'm sorry to bang on about Gen Z, but so many people asked about this particular demographic. If Gen Z is your demographic, then you really need to be getting into reels and videos and stories and multimedia content that's going to grab people's attention in a very short time. If you're thinking more about capturing the attention of older folk, people who want to read an abstract, then maybe you need more pictures with some text and a 300-word blurb in your description. Yeah. And the last thing is our how. So this is really our implementation. So again, we're going to be thinking about, how can we create our content? How can we keep it consistent? How can we interact with that community? And then how can we promote both our content and our channel? And how can we measure our success? Right. I'm just going to ask you briefly, how many of you are already doing this sort of thing? You don't need to give me a big screed. Oh, Kathleen, fantastic. Okay, a bit. All right. Okay. All right. So your communications team has obviously been educating everybody brilliantly already. So this is great. Okay. Yeah. Well, join the club. Those of you who are saying it could be better, I'm with you. I feel that, right? We can't all be perfect all the time. So I've noticed that Nancy asked, can you talk a bit about how to get followers besides just organically? So really, I think a lot of the getting followers besides, so when you're thinking about organically, this is about people who are searching for you and who are finding you and are just following you because you seem to be talking about something that they're interested in, right? If you're thinking about how to get followers more proactively, this involves reaching out to people, to see what they're talking about. So for example, I'm just going to use my climate change example. I apologize. This is what's in my head. If climate change is your thing, You might be doing some searches to find out who's talking about climate change. You're going to be doing some hashtag searches, right? Looking to see who is posting about this, who is using this tag. You would then potentially follow them, right? You might then comment on one of their posts and say, really like what you're talking about. This is really wise. I'm very interested in what you think. Would you like to play together and come and do a video? Very often when we take the step to comment and to engage and to really personalize our messages, there is a very good chance that they will proactively follow us back, right? Because we've given them a bit of a compliment. They can see that we are genuinely interested in their work. Nancy, I think this sort of thing is great. It can work brilliantly. The question is, my lovely, how much time do you have to do this, right? If you have a team of students that you can put onto this, maybe this is possible, but for ordinary superhuman researchers who already have lots on their plate, this could be a really big ask. Yeah, okay, super. Okay, so back to our wonderful strategy stuff. What was I going to tell you? What I'd like you to do, if you'd be willing to have a bit of a play with me, is I'd like you to just have a think about your existing Instagram account. Or I would like you to think about an Instagram account that you want to put together and just have a quick think. Have you really defined this why and what and who? Be honest with yourself. You don't need to, to put anything in the chat. How much work do you need to do in order to make sure that your why is crystal clear? And that feeds into the who. And that is reflected in the kind of content you're creating. And as I say, you don't need to tell me, but just think about it, Generally speaking, I think in the back of our heads, we all know that we need to do this and we don't do as much of it. What we could consider doing, and don't panic, you don't have this yet, but I'll send it to you after the call. I created a beautiful template for you in Excel, and I'll just show you a couple of screenshots. One of the things that I would invite you to do, if you have some time after this call, when you're not doing something that is vitally important and needs to be done immediately, is to sit down and make a list. Who are all of the different audience members who might be interested in the content that you might create that aligns with your purpose, right? Who are they? So maybe they're your peers. What kind of content would interest them? If I'm thinking about my peers, maybe they'd be interested in, the weird and wonderful methodologies that I'm inventing. Perhaps they'd be interested in, I don't know, calls for collaboration or, calls for conference participation, right? Maybe they're interested in jobs, who knows, right? We could also then think about those people and think, what kind of formats might interest them, right? You might find that you've got many different formats that could be interesting. And then you can ask yourself, how does this align with my why? Doesn't take very long to do something like this, but it's a really useful exercise for you to say, oh, actually, this audience doesn't align with my why, or actually, this kind of content doesn't align with the red thread that I'm trying to weave through my profile. And then you can dispose of them or set them aside for another time. So that's something that I'm going to invite you to do after this call when you've got time. The other thing that I think you could do is you could flip it on its head. You could say, okay, thinking about my audience, thinking about this wonderful big why that I have, my purpose, my goals, my missions, right? You could have a think about what kind of content could I feasibly create? Could I create interviews? Could I create, I don't know, to-do lists? Not to-do lists, stupid word. Could I create top tips and resource lists, right? Could I create short summaries of my research and why it has practical application? Can I create and, right? So you could list this kind of content and then switch it on its head and say, does this align with my why? If it doesn't, why are you publishing it, right? Why are you worrying about it? Set it aside. Think about the format. Is video a good format? Could this just be a quick image? Is this just something spontaneous? Who would this really align with? And then any details that you have, right? So I provided you with a quick a quick example of how you could do this. Time investment, I think, I would say maybe, I don't know, 10 minutes, 15 minutes over a cup of nice coffee. Could be something that's really worthwhile for you to outline or to define what kind of content you want. So I'm going to stop there and I'm going to ask my little question: thoughts, comments, questions, objections, ideas, suggestions. What do you think? Very quiet. Okay. All right. So what I'm going to do, just if anyone's thinking or writing, feel free to carry on. I'm just going to telling you, sorry, it's a bit late here. I apologize. I'm just going to throw in a couple of questions that we received in the registration. So one of the questions that we had was, how do we focus the audience? We are often torn between recruiting prospective students and communicating research to professionals, right? So 2 ways to potentially do this, right? We could really think about doing what the BU Deaf Studies group did, where you break your account into 2, and then you have a crystal clear strategy for each one. One is about professionals and research, the other is about alumni and students and BU community. That's one thing you can do. Downside of that is that it takes double the amount of time. Okay, not double, but quite a lot of extra time. Another thing you could potentially do, and I'm just quickly going to stop there for a second because Samantha actually is asking something similar-ish, right? That's not a proper word, but just go with it. So the other thing that you could do, Samantha, is this is not exactly a response to this. So I'll finish what I'm saying and then I'll come back to you. So the other thing that you can do, if you've got these two or three multiple different audiences and you don't want to have 10 different channels, what you can think about doing is using design, right? So you could say, okay, some of my content is going to be applicable to everyone, right? This might be the spontaneous content. Oh, here I am outside a conference, or, here's our team, what a great team they are. This is very spontaneous content, relatively lightweight, just showing people your day-to-day. This could apply to any of your audiences. Then what you could do is you could create different templates for your images and your videos, right? Just to present them. And maybe you could say, right, my professional researchy kind of stuff, that's going to have a bit of a, purple frame with a purple icon. Anything that is relevant to students only, that's going to have a turquoise frame with a turquoise icon that looks a bit different. Nice thing about that, very visual. People will eventually be trained. We're very good at this. Our brains work brilliantly with this, right? We can train people to know what belongs to them and what is relevant for other people. So Samantha, to your question, you've said that you've got a very diverse audience. Do you suggest diversifying content based on these different audiences? And do you have any suggestions on how to keep a specific, consistent voice and feel? That's a big question, Samantha. So I'm thinking that the thing is, if you're trying to be all things to all people and you're just providing very general content to this very diverse audience, my question would be, is anyone actually getting anything out of it? So you could decide to have some kind of plan where you are saying on Mondays, we write stuff for the alumni, or we create stuff for the alumni. Wednesdays is for Gen Z, prospective students, and Fridays is for thought leaders, right? So that's something that you could potentially do. And everything else that comes in is a little bit more generic. So that's something that you could do. I think I would diversify the content a bit, because otherwise you're trying to be all things to all people, and I just don't know that that's going to work. How to keep a consistent voice? You have to find your voice first. Are you, light and easygoing? Are you going to be very formal? It doesn't really work, I think, on a channel to be super formal with your thought leaders, but then using lots of slang for your Gen Z prospective students, right? I think it's going to be a bit jarring if any of your audience taps into other content. So I think that's going to be a real challenge. I think you have to find some sort of voice that's going to work across all of them. I don't know if that helps, but that would be my quick and dirty answer on this topic. How do you get more nuance into content? I find it really limiting to get something into a 90-second reel or quick post. You know, Naomi, I think you know, this is the nature of the channel, right? And particularly if you're thinking about the 90-second reel, this is something that is not going to allow you to go into massive depth. The only thing that I would maybe suggest there is rather than thinking of it as just a 90-second reel or a quick post, what if you did a series? What if you did a 90-second reel that was your introduction, and then another 90-second reel that spoke a little bit about your results, and another 90-second reel that spoke about some cool methodological stuff, right? Then you can actually give lots of information for people who are following you, but everything stays in that 90-second reel. And as a bonus, what you can say is, if you were watching my last reel, you will know blah, blah, blah. Now I'm going to tell you ABC. And if someone's really interested, maybe they'll go back and look at the other reel, or they'll go back and look at the other post. So maybe that's a sneaky way to get more engagement. Yeah. All right. I don't see any more comments, so I am going to swiftly move forward because I'm mindful that time is moving on horrifyingly fast, as it always does in these sessions. So you will notice that I have completely ignored the how and all of this good stuff, but don't worry, we're going to come back to that in a bit. So ever so briefly, we're going to have a quick chat about profiles. A couple of things about profiles. You may already know this, so I'll whiz through it as quickly as I can. When it comes to our profiles, if you're going to be creating a new profile, or if you've already got one, typically the default is personal, right? You can choose, however, between a personal or a professional profile. Once you choose professional, if that's your choice, you will then go through and you will see that you can choose to be a business or a creator. So I had a quick chat with the BU Comms team and I said, what do you recommend? What do you like to do? And here's what they said. They've said to me, if you're an occasional user, you know, you're mixing up your research and personal, stick with a personal account. Departmental users, we're going for a business account, and researchers wanting to be thought leaders and so on, creators. Did you notice that I went from bottom to top just to trick you? So joking aside, this is the recommendation. I would like to just add an extra 2 pence worth here. If you have a personal account, you cannot connect your account to Facebook to get insights, and you cannot use the Meta Business Suite in order to link your account to tools like Buffer that will allow you to schedule content in advance. Okay, I don't know if any of you already do this. As far as I know, it still hasn't changed. I double-checked this morning. If anyone has other information, that's fine. My suggestion is that if you are not interested in metrics to see how your posts are performing, and if you are not interested in using a tool that will allow you to schedule your posts, right? So sit down, write 10 posts and get them to go out, you know, once a week for the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks or whatever it happens to be, then by all means, stay with a personal account. If you are interested in metrics, and if you are interested in potentially scheduling stuff over a period of time in the future, you probably need to have a professional account, because otherwise you won't be able to do that. Okay, so I'll just throw that out there in case that's useful. So very briefly, anatomy of our strong Instagram profiles. For those of you who are just starting out, again, very, very quickly, and I'm using the Center on Emerging Infectious Diseases. I keep thinking I'll remember what CEID means, but I don't. Acronyms, right? So we need to have an easily searchable profile name, right? That's number one. The next thing that we need to have a recognizable and searchable username. Our username can be up to 30 characters. That is a very long username, okay? Good thing is that if you've got, for example, in our profile name, if we have Boston University, and if you have strong keywords like emerging infectious diseases, if people are looking for that, they will find you anyway, even if you've got an acronym in your username, right? Username ideas, we have, just give me 2 seconds to very quickly I know that you can see my screen. This is the thing I'm going to send you later. Rachel sent this to me, and I think it might be useful to you. So I'll pop it into the chat, 2 seconds. Hang on 2 seconds. Here we go. So there is a little best practices document here that will tell you all about, what to think about in terms of your name and so on. So that might be useful. Where was I? Right, yes. So recognizable and searchable username. You will see when we're looking at the different examples from BU, sometimes people have BU at the end, sometimes they have it at the beginning, sometimes they have an underscore. There isn't a very strong feeling about this, so don't panic if you see that people are doing it slightly different to you. And this is very much departmental, right, rather than individual. We need to have a relevant profile picture. Again, that document that I've just popped into the chat, you are going to find that they're going to give you some advice on how you can create this profile picture. My 2 cents worth, for what it's worth, if you are an individual researcher, have a photo of yourself, right? People want to connect with people as far as possible. And I don't know if it works. I don't know if all of the BU departments all have logos. If you really want to connect with people, maybe there's an argument for wondering whether you need to have a photo of your team in your image. Just something to maybe think about, and also bearing in mind the best practices that are offered by the lovely team at BU Comms, right? Then, of course, we need to have a really amazing, engaging 150 character description. This description is important because if people find you and they go onto your profile and they have a quick look, they're probably going to spend 30 seconds or less reading this, right? So we need to make sure that it's really relevant to us. And we also have a link, right? You don't have to, but it's a good idea to have a link. You can have at the moment up to 5 external links. So let's have a quick chat about links. One or many. What if you have loads of links? And I think I wrote this for myself, but also for you. If you want to have links, you can only use these in the app. The reason that I've mentioned this explicitly, and I will quickly, whilst I'm telling you this, I'll quickly go elsewhere. The reason I'm telling you that explicitly is because I refuse to use the app because it's too distracting for me. And one of the things that I found is that whenever I want to use or whenever I want to edit my links, I have to then install the app, then edit it. And I thought that might be useful for you too. So just briefly, once we're talking about links, this may or may not be useful. If you have many links, there are a couple of ways to deal with it. The easiest way to deal with it will be the way that the BU Business Law School deals with it. They have simply added their links, right? You can see down here, you click on this, and they can have up to 5 links. And I'll just throw this out there. They've got this wonderful link at the bottom that says, submit a question for the law school. I think is a very cool idea, a very nice way to get people to interact, okay? So that's one way that you can do it. The other way that you can do it is the way that CEID at BU has done it. They have used a link tree. I don't know if any of you use Linktree, but if you do, what you're able to do is create a list of all the links that people might find interesting, right? So this can be your latest research. This could be your latest events. This could be, I don't know, a link to your research department and. So you can have quite a lot of links here. It's not just limited to 5. One of the reasons I'm telling you about this, and here's the link in case it's useful in the chat. One of the reasons I think this might be useful for you is because many of us have many profiles, right? We've got a profile on LinkedIn and on X and on Mastodon and on Threads and on this and on that, right? How do you keep all of your different links up to date? Wouldn't it be nice if all of your latest links could be updated in one lovely place? And it automatically updates on all your profiles. Something like Linktree will allow you to do that. You can use the link that they produce for you on all of your profiles, only ever have to go into this platform once a month or whenever you've got something to update. And as soon as you update it, the next time somebody clicks on that link, they will see what you have. This could be a really interesting way for you to keep track of your links and to make sure that people always see the latest stuff that you have. One thing that I will say about this, if Linktree ever dies or goes offline or gets hacked, you might have a problem. So my very please don't judge, but my solution to this is to put it onto my website. It's not quite as pretty as Linktree, but it's the same sort of thing. I have a thing called Quick Links. I can send it out, I can put it on my profiles, and I update this periodically, so my links are always up to date. So I would suggest, if you've got lots of links, if you've got lots of profiles, consider either using Linktree or consider using, your own website, something that you can manage yourself, so that you can update those on a regular basis without having to go into your platforms. Yeah. Okay. Right. Let us whiz back. With a bit of luck, it's all going to work. I'm going to, ta-da. Right. So that's links that I hope will be useful to you. And I thought, just for those of you who are sort of thinking about, what can we do to make our profile better? My suggestion would be, it's really good for us to focus on what will be important to your audience and what's relevant to you, right? So front load it with the stuff that you think is really going to make a difference. Here's some inspiration from BU, stuff that might be useful. We might want to use @ mentions, right? So @ BU's Institute could be an interesting way to go. Keep it really simple. Say it like it is, they advance the research for a sustainable and equitable future. Think about your audience. Will an ordinary general public audience understand that? Or is that research speak? And is that perfect if their target audience is researchers, right? So think about that. You might want to use emojis. Some people hate them. Most people seem to have embraced them. It can really humanize your content. Might be an idea. You might also want to make sure that you've got keywords, right? We've been talking about that searching stuff. So make sure that you've got stuff about sustainable and equitable future. This is what's relevant to them. So if people are looking for global sustainability, they'll find them. If they're looking for equitable, if they're looking for future, there's a good chance that they'll be found. So lots of opportunities for people to find them organically. BU Business Law, a couple of things that I really like here. I really like the line breaks. So much easier to read. We're dealing with humans, not just search engines. So if you want to be kind, this might be a way to go. You might even be even sexier. And on the left-hand side where we've got the bullets, exchange those for emojis, right? The other thing that I really like here and that I would really encourage, include a call to action. They tell you that they've got a meeting that takes place every so often, and they say, join us. Lovely. Yes, please, I will. Fantastic. Why not? Okay. And then these are two examples from ordinary, not departments, just ordinary researchers that might be interesting. The first person, Chloe Kirk, she also breaks things down into 4 lines. She starts off and she tells you what she does: biochemistry, PhD, and patent law. Then she tells you, come for the science, stay for the cats, tea, and books, right? She's totally humanized this idea about being a science communicator. It's also a call to action with a bit of tongue in cheek, right? This might not be your style, but it's something that works really well. She's got 96,000 followers, right? And then she kind of has a little blurb at the end. This is her tagline: science is for everyone, right? So she's already stated what one of her values happens to be. And this is something that people really love. A slightly different approach comes from the lovely Jose. He's also started with this idea, molecular plant scientist, and then he tells us what he's working on. I am working on blah, 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 right? And then he's also humanized stuff a bit. He's talked about he's a Padawan biomaker. He's spoken about, being a SciComm person and a DIY bioenthusiast. And he's also included, very important again for our younger audiences, maybe not just the younger audiences, it's becoming more mainstream. He's also included his pronouns, right? Which again humanizes, it speaks to this world that we live in where we're really respectful for people's gender choices, right? Might make you more accessible, might make people want to follow you, might make your science and your research human, yeah? So that's what I'd like to offer you in terms of profile-y kind of stuff. I would say that once you've got your profile in place, know that it is not set in stone. You can change it any time, and you should want to change it any time. Sometimes good enough is good enough for now. On that note, questions, thoughts about profiles? Crickets. Okay. So one question that has cropped up a number of times is around personal accounts versus dedicated research accounts. Should you blend everything? Should you separate it? I think you need to be really clear about your goals. One person who wrote said that they have a very active account, personal account, where they're talking about fitness and travel. Should they now start talking about postdoc and PhD? I'm not really sure that that would work. If you've already got something that's really well established, it might be a good idea to set up a separate professional account for your work-based stuff, right, for your research. If you're somebody who just occasionally wants to post about your research along with other personal stuff, you might want to stick with a personal account. Why make life harder for yourself, right? In case that's of any use, those are 2 questions that came in. So what we're going to do now is we're going to have a quick chat about the 3 C's, and we're going to have a look at some of the creation pieces. And I am mindful of time. Don't worry, I will let you go on time. Don't panic. Okay. So I've already said to you that when it comes to 3 C's, we're talking about creating content with our goals and our audience in mind. This all comes down to our strategy. We're thinking about consistency, and we're thinking about how we can then, continually connect and engage with our community. So what can we think about here? We can think about, when it comes to creation, we need to be thinking a little bit about what content will we be creating. We need to think about the practicalities of actually how we create it, right? How do we design or develop it? And we need to think about who's going to be creating and potentially posting this content. And often that's just one person, right? A full-time job for a researcher. There are two approaches that we can take. The first one is spontaneity. Great thing is that I see this on lots of different channels, including the departmental channels, right? This is when you're walking down the road and you're a biologist, or you're I don't know, some kind of physical scientist, and you see some gorgeous yellow lichen, and you take a photo and you put it on your post. You say, oh gosh, isn't this an amazing color? I am a biology fan or a lichen fan, right? Really spontaneous. You pop it onto your phone, if you have it on your phone. Very quick, very engaging, totally resonates with ordinary everyday people who can totally feel your excitement and your love, right? This is great. If you can do this all the time, wonderful, right? Although planning might be helpful. Otherwise, for the rest of us, people who maybe want to think about planning, writing more polished content rather than stuff that just comes to us, we need to think about how do we craft that content, how do we write, how do we schedule, and so on. We need to dive into this a bit deeper. Okay, and there are 2 things that we've already spoken about. We spoke about the audience, thinking about the audience and what content might be useful for them. We also thought a little bit about the kinds of content we might want to write and how that aligns with our audience and with ourselves, right? So theoretically speaking, you've done this great work. Then we need to start thinking, are we going to be creating images and video? And we need to start thinking about, what are our options? So the options that we have, we can create our own content. We can use institutional content. We can use royalty-free content. And we can use a mix of this all, and we can start editing it. And I'm going to take you briefly to, she says, hopefully, to something I prepared earlier just for you, my lovelies. Thinking a little bit about what we have. Is this right? Sorry, I have so many tabs open for you. Okay. Where is it? 2 seconds. Right. So first things first, let's think about what you currently have at BU. I've been checking out your site and you've got loads of cool stuff, right? So one of the things that you have at BU is you have some material that will actually help you start thinking about designing your images and video, creating your own brand, right? Creating a really nice, consistent look and feel. There is a whole page about your branding and lots of guidelines about voice and tone and all of this good stuff. And for those of you who are really interested in branding, there is a workshop coming up that I have discovered on the 7th of November. So you might want to register for that and find out if they can help you tailor a brand for your social media channel. The other thing that you have, however, which is really quite fantastic, you have some templates. None of them are social media, but they could be inspiring. And you have free BU stock photography, right? So if you need to be talking about what's going on at BU, You know, if you want to use a photograph that you can't take yourself, that's super quality, and that isn't just another stock photo, it's all here. All you need to do is register, right? So this could be a really great way for you to start thinking about your brand, for you to start thinking about, about the images that you use, and for you to really align your content with what is currently in BU already, right? If you decide to be a little bit more creative and start doing stuff on your own, again, I've provided you with a whole pile of resources, but you can start playing with things like color palettes, right? You can start playing with things like fonts. Somebody asked, what's the best font to use? I'm sure there's some guidelines about this. For me personally, my favorite font for social media is Open Sans. The reason I like Open Sans, there are about 12 different versions of the same font in different weights, right? It means I only need to worry about one font, and it gives me lots of different options. So you can have a bit of a play with that. There are lots of ways to think about how to build your brand and how to be consistent. So here's an example from our Institute for Global Sustainability again. What you can see is they've got this lovely kind of, what would you call it, lime green to turquoise range, right? And they've used this everywhere. And they use it really consistently as well, just to give you an idea. We go down a little bit. Where are they? Here we go. So they've got these videos that they create, presumably every Friday or periodically on Fridays, to introduce a PhD student. We know what to expect because every time that kind of video pops up, that's what it looks like, right? Very often we know that it's going to be BU Institute for Global Sustainability stuff because they have their logo at the bottom of every single post, or pretty much every single post. The exception is our spontaneous posts, right? So it's really nice when you go through accounts like this, we can see, okay, that's that kind of content, this is an application thing. This is a video, right? This is something else, right? This is a quote. Lovely consistency. Our brains love this. It's great to give people a shortcut for what they're going to be finding. And you'll find this throughout all of the different, or not all, but many of the platforms that are out there within BU, the profiles. So you can see same sort of thing with BU experts. They've got a bog standard template. The template is fantastic image in the background, great big title, and then we've got some lovely text below it. So you really want to think about, how can you design stuff as easily as possible using the tools that you've got available, which might be within BU, in order to make your life easier, right? And of course, to create this wonderful consistency. And of course, somebody's already mentioned it, but Canva is a great option for this sort of thing. They've got free packages that you can use. You can get some inspiration for templates and so on. Obviously, you'll have to tailor them to make them research specific, but the basics are there, right? It's going to save you buckets and buckets of time. So I think that that's something that that might be really useful for you. So I'm just going to whiz back to my beautiful slides. Again, you've got some really useful information from the BU Public Relations team, which again, I'll pop into the chat, things about thinking about user-generated content. How can you use that? How can you leverage that sort of stuff? How can you think more strategically about copyrighted images and photos? So you've got a great deal that you can go ahead with just with the information that you already have. Yeah. So moving on, and again, just looking at time, just briefly about our captions. We don't want to forget our captions. I think I've already mentioned to you, we've got quite a lot of space for captions, right? You can go wild. You can very easily have 300 to 400 words. Unless you're going to be speaking to researchers who may be interested in reading 300 to 400 words, consider whether that's really relevant, right? And you can make your captions very interesting. They don't just have to be text. You can integrate your emojis, you can integrate @ mentions, which is going to pull people into your site. You can integrate hashtags directly into your text, as well as in a comment or underneath your text. And of course, as you can see here with the BU experts, you can tell people to learn more in the link in your bio, which will then hopefully take them to a link tree where they can see all the fantastic stuff that you are trying to publicize. And of course, whilst we're thinking about this sort of stuff, our keywords are really important too. Yeah. So this is really worthwhile to think about. Other stuff that might be useful, just thinking about consistency. We've already started dabbling into consistency in terms of our design. We want to think about consistency in other ways too, right? So consistency isn't really about, it's not only about the look and feel. It's not only the sort of content that you're posting. It's not only about the voice and tone and language, right? Keeping all of that lovely and consistent. It's also about the regularity and when. Important for us to know, if you want to get your content in front of people, something that's really important is this idea of recency, right? We know that when we post something, if people respond to it really quickly, we're much likely to get ahead in the algorithm. And when we're thinking about regularity, we want to be thinking about what does that mean, right? So Adam Mosseri, who is I don't know if he still is, but he was the head of Instagram when he said this, he suggested a couple of posts a week plus a couple of stories a day. A couple of stories a day to show what you're doing on a regular basis. It's quite a lot, I think, for an individual to post a couple of stories a day. But I think you could probably get by with a couple of posts a week. In the little template that I'm going to send you, I've put together a really basic, very simple, right, planner that you could potentially use. Think about having maybe 6 different types of content, and then space them over a period of 6 weeks or 8 weeks, right? And so, for example, Mondays, every first week out of every 6, that's going to be, I don't know, a video about a student, for example. Wednesday is going to be a fabulous paper. Friday is going to be how your results are applied in the real world, whatever, right? Using something like this can just help you think. And it can also help you with your planning generally and making sure that it's consistent. So every 6 weeks, you're going through the same sort of process. Again, consistency, consistency, consistency. If you don't have time to do this, one of the things that you could potentially think about doing, one of the things that you could potentially think about doing is using something like Buffer. I don't know if any of you use this. Again, this is a resource that I'll send you. Buffer is a tool that you can use if you have a professional account, right? Either a creator or a business account. You can link this to Facebook and through that to Buffer. There are many other tools which I'll offer you as well. They all work pretty similarly. You simply link your account and you can then go and you can schedule content on different days of the week. So if we're thinking about that lovely little colorful planner that I offered you, you could take this little planner and you could say, right, Monday, the 1st of January, I'm going to post this. Wednesday, the 3rd of January, I'm going to post this. You spend a day, or you get a student to spend a day working on all of this. You put everything into the system, post it, and they will automatically post for you. Really, really simple. You can add your hashtags, you can add your images, you can add sometimes at mentions. It doesn't always work too well with the at mentions, but you can do quite a lot of cool stuff with it. One day a month, and you can knock off your standard posting, for a whole 6 weeks. So this is definitely something to think about. And the other thing just to think about with our consistency is our timing. So this comes from Sprout Social, if I'm correct. Yes, it does. That's good. They've done quite a lot of work on this. They're based in the United States, and so this is their finding in the US. I realize you have different time zones, so let's pretend it's East Coast. They've come up with a general rule of thumb that, typically speaking, Monday through Friday is best to post. Best days, if you really want to narrow it down, is going to be Tuesday to Thursday. Worst day, Sunday. Don't post on Sunday. Right? That's what I've taken from this, You could use this as a basis for when to post stuff, posting it consistently at these times. And then you can use your metrics to decide, how are people actually responding? Do I need to play with this? Do I need to tweak and tune? Okay. In our last 4 minutes, I will just offer you very briefly thinking about our community stuff, right? This community and connection. It's called social media because it's supposed to be about people, connections, and conversations. lots of ways for us to engage, right? We can follow, we can like, we can comment, we can share, we can @mention, we can reply to what people are posting. So I would definitely encourage you to think about doing this with people who aren't necessarily following you, right? Show them that you're interested, and maybe they'll show that they're interested in return. And one of the big things that I find on Instagram, loads of people comment, right? So loads of people receive comments to whatever it is that they've posted, but the person who's posted it never bothers to reply. It's a missed opportunity. If somebody takes the time to say, I love your post, or gives you a little heart or some random emoticon, why wouldn't we reply and say thank you? Or I agree. Yeah, that's great. Would you like to see more? This is a lost opportunity, in terms of our connection. I'm going to stop there because I'm mindful of the time. I'm going to stop sharing as well. Any thoughts, comments, questions? I know that I've taken you on a bit of a whirlwind tour. Okay. Oh, Tanya, I love you. Little hug from Innsbruck. Okay, super. All right. Okay, so I'm glad that it's been useful. There were 2 little bits that I wasn't able to finish off in my rapid speech, but I will make sure that that is in the notes for you. Stuff that you're going to get. I have what I think is a pretty cool template that will help you. I have loads and loads of resources for you. And I have, yes, to Tanya, all the links will be emailed in the resource list, and along with a sort of more detailed presentation as well. So you'll have everything, as well as kind of step-by-step notes for anything that I might have missed. If anybody needs anything, if I've missed anything and you were like, oh, I really had a question, I really wanted to chat about it, feel free to drop me a line. I will pop that into the presentation that goes out to you. Really happy to have a conversation if that's useful. At 20:29 my time, I don't know what time it is your time, but I don't know, past. I will thank you for listening, and thank the lovely Rachel for having me, and thank our incredible ASL folks for doing all of this interpretation with me speaking in a funny accent at 500 kilometers an hour. And wish you a wonderful day. And on that note, Rachel, my lovely, I'm handing back to you.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you everyone for joining. As Suzanne mentioned, we will be sharing both this recording, the slides, and a post-event survey. So we hope that you'll be able to fill that out, and we will be in touch with those follow-ups very soon. Thanks so much. Bye.